So this is really, I'd say, damning now for Starmer. This was the week in Parliament that his lies and his cover-ups caught up with him. This is what he does. He takes legal cases against our country's bravest and finest people. Starmer, you have to come to the House to apologise for what you're doing. He's really tearing apart our institutions. This is massive.
Yeah.
This is massive here, what's going on.
How are the Labour MPs doing?
The mood is a thick air of gloom. He has let them down monumentally. They're seeing now that he is a serial liar. He's not to be trusted. This is going to be another huge embarrassment for Starmer. They looked like a gang of numpties.
Welcome to the Daily Expresso. I'm JJ Nisyobi, and it's Thursday, so I'm joined by the wonderful Esther McVey, our own Westminster whisperer. Esther, after a rather busy recess, it feels like Parliament's back in action and it's busy again.
Yes, and I think this week it's definitely about Starmer's lies, cover-ups and political cowardice. Lies because what he said and the role he played in hounding British veterans through the court. He said he didn't have one and he didn't have really a connection with Phil Shiner. That disgraced lawyer proved to be a lie. The cover-ups over the appointment of Lord Mandelson, what he knew about the relationship with Epstein, and worse, after he'd been told he had to release the information about the appointment of Mandelson, he's now trying to do another cover-up on that as well. So that's a disgrace. And then also the cover-up, I will say, of the rape gang inquiry and what he's doing there. And I will bring to you the latest statement from the independent rape gang inquiry, our request to see the Home Secretary, Rupert Lowe. As you know, the independent MP is really pushing for that because we have uncovered the most barbaric, brutal behaviour against girls, and we want an immediate meeting with the Home Secretary. And I think because of this inquiry, because obviously we've been taking evidence for the last couple of weeks, you saw today that Scotland is now going to do an inquiry into this because we exposed it was happening in Scotland too. The level of these lies by Starmer, the cover-ups and the cowardice really does show contempt, not just for Parliament, but also for the public. And I have come to no other conclusion than Starmer did not want to become the Prime Minister of this country to make sure that it had a safe stewardship, to make sure we had a bright future, but rather to destroy our country's institutions, to diminish the UK on the world stage, to make it subservient to other countries so that he could pursue his belief in a new world order.
Wow. So it's Keir Starling, it's two-tier Keir, and now I think we should call him cover-up Keir.
Absolutely. And I'm going to start with, because it was most extraordinary that happened this week, and it was an apology to the House from the Veterans Minister. And she came to the House and she said, I would like to correct the record. So it's known as a point of order. It is a correction. You can see it as an apology. But she said, I said that the Prime Minister did not work with any of Phil Shiner's organisations and that his role was limited to working with the Law Society on points of law. However, that is not true. The Prime Minister was instructed to represent an individual by the law firm for which Shiner was the principal solicitor. And at the time, she'd said to Mark Francois, the shadow Defence Minister, she'd said to him, he doesn't have an eye for detail, he doesn't know about detail, because he asked the question, how can Starmer be the Prime Minister, put our armed forces in harm's way if this is what he does? He takes legal cases against our country's bravest and finest people. She said, not true. He hasn't done that at all. And actually, it proved to be the case. So this is really, I'd say, damning now for Starmer, because these cases actually changed the law. It allowed for British veterans to be pursued through the court under the European human rights, and that's what he did. And that's known as the Al Jeddah case. And it was a new precedent that he set. And he also worked on another case which meant that veterans were pursued over many, many years, tried for murder, of which they were found not guilty, no case to answer, but some of them were tried time and time again, absolutely threw their life into turmoil, destroyed some of them. Some of them wanted to take their own life. I mean, it really was dramatic, and this is what he has done. And the reason I say now, when you're caught out lying, as Starmer has been,
Many
people
times.
then want, over the manifesto, what he promised he'd do, but under this one in particular, people are now going to start digging into other cases. Because up until now, he's always relied on the cab rank rule. I didn't choose to do these cases. It came up. I took the next job along. Therefore, I took it.
Yeah.
And he's found out actually now that isn't the case, because he did some of this work pro bono. So he chose to do it. So he lied about that. But what I'm saying people are going to look into now are the other cases, the cases with people like Abu Qatada, and what role did he play in trying to stop him, try and prevent him being deported from the UK. So here we had, I'm sure you'll remember him, the Islamist, the preacher there, and we were trying to deport him from the UK. He was trying to keep him into the UK. And they'll also look into legal advice he is now given to. It's an Islamist organisation that's now banned as a terrorist group from the UK, Hizb ut-Tahrir. And what did he do there? So once you lie, and people expose it, things like that are going to be dug into. And people are also, MPs are also now saying, Starmer, you have to come to the House to apologise for what you're doing. Let's not send everybody, which he always does.
Yeah.
Never hear Keir. He doesn't even come in to apologise for his mistakes. He sends other ministers out to defend it. Now, of course, the veteran minister on this instance had to, because she'd said things that she'd been told. And people are saying now, if Downing Street is coming out to give these lies. And remember, there was newspapers digging into it. The Telegraph was digging into it. We've probably talked about it before. I know we have. Other news channels have. And Number 10 was straight on the phone. You can't say that. It's not true. You must stop what you're doing. Now, you have to ask yourself, Downing Street was doing that, but who would have instructed them to do that? Because there's only one person who knows whether he was telling the truth or not. There's only one person who knows whether he was on those court cases or not. And that was him. And he's tried to distance himself from it. But I have to say, this was the week in Parliament that his lies and his cover-ups caught up with him.
Well, if you are enjoying what you've seen so far, make sure you click the link in the description. It takes you to our premium offering. That means you'll get premium exclusive content from the Daily Express and never before seen clips from the Expresso. And whilst I've got you, hit that hype button. Where are we at with Mandelson?
Well, you see, this, again, it's another cover-up. You could call it bad judgment is what he sort of said. He sort of said, oh, I believed a liar when he told me a lie. I didn't think that Mandelson was lying to me. I took him on face value. I appointed him, didn't really know about this relationship with Epstein, which he did. It's been proved he did. The relationship went on, which he knew after he'd already been in prison and convicted. When he came out, well established that he was a paedophile, he was a friend, they had close relationships. But Kemi Badenoch brought it forward as a mechanism which forces the Prime Minister, the government, to release information. It's not a request. It's not asking you very nicely. It is an order to do it. And it's known as a humble address because you go above the ministers, above the Prime Minister, and you go to the King, who then says you must do this. And it's known as a humble address. And remember, it's called His Majesty's Government, and he does it. Well, now, can you believe it? The cheek of Starmer, he's now saying, I'm not going to give all of that information. I said it. I've been ordered to do it. I said I'd do it. And now he's saying, oh, no, it could prejudice the criminal case against Mandelson if I release it. That isn't true. We have parliamentary privilege on the floor of the House. So that isn't true. He could have released the information, but he's trying to hide behind his sort of legal expertise as it is. And the Speaker has also said he must release that information. So it's making people say, you're not a prime minister. You haven't got the country's interests at heart. You are first and foremost a lawyer because everything you do is about you, legal protection, your legal rights. But worse, he is a human rights lawyer, an international rights lawyer, and that's what he wants to do. So I'm afraid this is going to be another huge embarrassment for Starmer. And I'm going to pick up another point here. I don't know if you saw it this week, what happened to the Speaker.
Yeah, I did.
Right.
I did indeed.
So last week on the show, I asked and we spoke about it. We saw Andrew Mountbatten Windsor arrested. And I said here, why hadn't he been? Why hadn't, therefore, Mandelson been arrested? No one is above the law. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor isn't, but neither should Mandelson be above the law. When is he going to be arrested? And then he was. And I have to say, I think our show, I saw the comments that our viewers and listeners put on, and everybody else started to talk about it anyway. Mandelson was arrested. But how it came about during recess, the Speaker ended up being in the British Virgin Islands, right? And he heard that Mandel was planning to go there. So he is, and he has to give over this information. If he came across this information, so he handed it over to the Met Police. And then somebody there released it to the defence that this is what he said, and the defence lawyers. It was front page of the Telegraph. They actually got it wrong, and they said the Speaker of the House of Lords. But they said, now, I cannot tell you how bad that is.
Yeah.
That somebody gives you information about a crime that's committed, something that is like a top priority for the country.
Yeah.
And the police let this information out to the defence lawyer, and basically threw the Speaker under the bus. Now, who is going to come forward with information to say, I know this, if you don't have the protection of the police? Who's going to come forward with information?
Well, no one's going to. You can't trust the police then to protect your safety. If you're in an area where you've got drug dealers or that kind of thing, and you think, I'm going to tell the police about this, then the police go and tell the drug dealers, yes, Janice at number 47 is the one who grassed you in. That's bonkers.
And, people are saying this, we've got a prime minister, we've got a country now where people are frightened to talk about things. We were frightened to reveal what was going on with the rape gang. We're frightened, of the police. And that's why I said at the start, he's really tearing apart our institutions. So today, the police are coming into the House, I believe, to apologise to the Speaker and also the Speaker of the Lords for revealing of this information and, putting them at risk and also sending out a message to anybody else who does the right thing that they're at risk. So this is massive.
Yeah.
This is massive here, what's going on.
How are the Labour MPs doing? What are you hearing in the whispers of the halls around there?
Right. The mood is a thick air of gloom. They know their time is up. The person they thought was their leader, their champion, actually isn't at all. He has let them down monumentally. They're seeing now that he is a serial liar, that he is covering up, that he is a coward, that he's not to be trusted. And how do people feel now going up, defending him? Because they believed what he told them, only to be made to look an idiot as he does a U-turn on the 15th, or be an idiot, you having to come to the floor of the House. This Veterans Minister had to come to the floor of the House to apologise when she believed at the time she was saying the right thing. So actually, they're gloomy, they're not there. And then what happened this week, because again, something we talked about last week, do you remember Labour Together? And this is the big, very influential Labour think tank that got him into power. Well, there was obviously an urgent question on that matter, right? Every Labour MP turned against the government. They said it was a disgrace. What was Labour Together doing? How could it smear journalists?
Yeah.
Where did the money come from? Who got that money? What went on? And the minister replying, one of his own Labour backbenchers stood up and said, but you've taken £60,000 from Labour Together, this organisation. To which he said on the floor of the House, well, no, I didn't. They checked it, did a point of order at the end. No, but you've taken it in benefits in kind. They've paid for you. They've paid for staff. What are you going to do? So much so he now has to seek whether he misled the House or whether he should have even been given that statement, because he was compromised. But every Labour MP attacked their own government. I have never seen anything like it. And then obviously Jeremy Corbyn came out and said, well, look, I've been looking at this. Did you undermine me? Did Starmer undermine its own Labour Party when I was leader to get me out, to put him as the leader? Yep. What is going on? So when you said, what is the mood of Labour MPs, some of it is furious, some of it is gloomy, and some of it is resigned. There is an air of fait accompli. We are finished. We are over. And I do hope, and they are waiting for, I think, May to remove him as leader, because now they have to. Starmer is so tarnished. It's embarrassing.
Now, you've been sat in the independent rape inquiry. It's concluded now. You put out a statement, like 25, 26 million views you've had on that. And now we're seeing the influence of that pushing other people to try and do things as well.
Right. So, you're right. This statement that we put out, and it's the start of the evidence. So we've taken all the evidence from the inquiry, but this is now what we're doing, what we plan to do, how we're going to formulate it into what the state needs to do, what the government should be doing. And one statement in particular, all of it was harrowing. It did uncover and unearth that actually this, rape gang was going on in Scotland, and that's why today they've now announced, I believe, that they're going to do a rape gang inquiry in Scotland. But some of the stuff that was revealed was horrific. And one of them not only brutally raped daily for years, from about the age of 11 to 21, but to keep her under their control, there was blackmail, they would video you, and obviously there were threats of torture, pain, and even death. And something that is known as the Red Room, and if you heard you were going into the Red Room, you would be traumatised, because this was the worst of the worst, and this is where they'd video you. Because of all the perverts and horrific people globally who'd want to pay for video footage of what went on, they would say, what would you like to happen to these girls? It was done, some of it absolutely, from, strangulation, brutality, bestiality, you name it, absolutely horrendous. And one of the girls said she believed that she saw 3 girls murdered. And that is why we've said it is urgent now. We need to see the Home Secretary. There are things that we've unearthed and uncovered, and you need to follow this up, because this has gone beyond grooming and rape. This is now international. This is now organised crime. It's got drugs, it's got video, it's got pornography, it's got murder in there now. It is on a scale that is urgent that the government comes in and makes arrests on this. And Rupert Lowe, the independent MP, has driven the charge on this. Sammy Woodhouse, somebody herself who had been abused, the barrister there, Graham Smith, who was involved, and obviously I was there as well, because I believed it was important. I was a child who went into care as a young child. I was a Bernardo, so I didn't go into a care home. I went into families' homes. But to me, I thought there, but for the grace of God, anybody could have ended up in an institution that you thought you were going to be protected in. You were going to be looked after. The state would said you were in safe care. And they weren't. They were being brutalised. They were being tortured. They were being taken advantage of, and nobody believed them.
Even with all this information and evidence you have, why do you think the government is still dragging their heels?
Well, this is what we've said. There's questions, why are you? And the conclusion has come as to this, that many of these men predominantly were of Pakistani heritage. And Labour being so frightened of their vote, so it's all political, that they did not want to look into this. They were frightened of losing power. So instead of doing the right thing, they made a political decision rather than the right decision on criminality. And this accusation keeps coming up now. And I'm afraid they have done nothing to quell anybody's belief that that is the truth. People still believe in that. And worse, people are saying, well, what was your role as DPP Starmer in this? People came to you with evidence about this. Why? What did you know at the time? What came across your desk at the time? Why didn't you do it? Again, we've covered the story about the way Starmer wants to get rid of all of those criminal records, wants to get rid of the court desk platform. They've done a U-turn on that. They can't, as I said to you at the time, just copy everything that's on there. And this is why. So he seems to be, Starmer, conflicted not only on his legal past, but also on his political votes. He wants to keep the Muslim vote happy, therefore he's not doing anything. And also look at the timing, by-election timing, local election timing, and or obviously survival of himself timing.
Now, Esther, I didn't know you were such an animal lover, but you've been up this week with your 10-minute rule bill about halal meat.
I'll tell you who else I'm working with on this. You might remember her, a lady called Selina Scott.
Yeah.
She's a big animal welfare, individual. And I'll tell you what it is, right? Right. In the UK, we've always believed, and it is always the cases, that animals should be stunned before they are slaughtered, right? And this is because if you don't stun an animal, it feels great pain.
Yeah.
Right? However, an exemption was made for religious meat that they could do it via either the halal way or the kosher way, which means you would slit the animal's throat. Halal, it is often stunned, right, but not always.
Yeah.
But in kosher meat, it is not stunned at all. Now, that was meant to be an exemption to the rule. That is no longer the case. It has now become a growing part of the meat industry. So out of the billion animals that were processed in English and Welsh slaughterhouses last year, 214 million were for halal meat, which is well over the proportion, 4 times the amount of the Jewish Muslim population. We are now becoming an exporter of halal meat to the UEA. Worse than that, people don't know they are eating it. So halal meat now is the go-to meat for the NHS. So if in your hospitals you get it, if you're in schools you'll get it, if you're in universities you get it. It's also now, whether it's supermarkets, they now sell it, or if it's takeaway foods. And I'm saying consumers don't know. You don't know what you're eating. So other religious groups are saying, gosh, we don't want meat that has been blessed by somebody else. People like me, because it is about animal welfare, transparency of the food production system and choice of the consumer. We don't know what we're eating. We're all eating that. And I'm saying that is not right. And what is worse, it's become a cheaper way now of producing meat, because you're taking out a whole part of the process. You're not stunning them anymore. So you're taking out a section that was vital to Christian beliefs, UK beliefs, that an animal should not feel pain. You've taken that out. It is much cheaper, and that is being sold on, and that is wrong too. So what I'm saying, and why I brought the bill forward, I was not asking for a ban on halal or kosher, but what I was saying is it needs to be clearly labelled, so everybody knows what they're eating and can choose to eat it or not. And it should not now be a growing part of the industry, because it is cheaper meat, because you're taking out a key part of the process. And that was it. Now, unfortunately, some Labour MPs came forward and said on the internet yesterday, I was wrong, there is labelling, how embarrassing for them. One, it isn't, they voted against it, there is not compulsory labelling. And 2, you don't get a bill on the floor of the House that has gone through all of the procedures if it already exists in the law. So not only did they show complete ignorance of the law, they also showed ignorance of parliamentary process. Or, and I'm going to give you this question, are they so used to Starmer lying? He has set now a precedent for his own MPs that they think they can do and say whatever they want. I think because they are frightened of this, they've brought their own welfare animal welfare strategy forward, 12,500 words of it, and nowhere in there talks about, this animal sort of welfare. They're talking about kinder slaughter to fish and not boiling lobsters, but nothing about animals. So I think they're embarrassed, but how dare they take to the airwaves, and to do something that was factually wrong, and so it's proved to be. So they looked like a gang of numpties.
I think we'll end it right there, Esther.
But look, big week, and it is lies, cover-ups, political cowardice. Next week, everybody will be on the charge to expose Starmer. His days are numbered. He is gone. And I think it's just, as we've said for a while, political courage from Labour MPs to remove him. And it will be probably after the local elections in May.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Esther McVey.
My pleasure.
Tough week for cover-up Keir. That is all for today's Daily Expresso. A special shout out to Hannah Kane, our outgoing assistant editor at The Express. Legends never die. Bye-bye.